As the storm approached, Donald and Kimberly Stokes hunkered down here at the back of the house in their bathroom. They were covering over their dogs. The tornado sent them airborne. They landed way over there in the middle of the street. When you get pulled over, you have to get out proof of insurance. Oftentimes that means reaching into your glove box. However, that sort of movement can make an otherwise normal interaction suddenly very tense. Scalise's office says he's in critical condition tonight after being shot in the hip earlier this morning. Now, the gunman's social media accounts suggest that politics may have played a role in inspiring him to open fire. Today, House leadership called for unity. We are at Evangeline Airline, right in smack dab in the middle of the intersection. If you look behind me a ways, this is Airline Highway. Space is a problem, however, here at the old shipping hub, the port of Havana. You can see the entrance behind me. As the city grew up around it, there was simply no space to expand. Whether they get the job done or not, every time lawmakers come here to the Capitol, it costs you, the taxpayer, more money. For example, lawmakers are each paid $157 a day, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when you consider there are more than 140 legislators and the session lasted 25 days, that begins to add up, with the state paying out $571,000. Hey there, Donna and Andre. I am live right now amongst a scary pack of tigers. We are live along the parade route right now. We're, of course, a little less than an hour away from kickoff time, and I'm here with Peggy. You are in charge of this float, so why the tiger theme? We are still waiting for the president-elect to arrive. They have the hangar doors open here at the airport, and we haven't seen his plane touch down. The sheriff says the best way to stay safe is to use cash, but if you have to use a card, be sure to use credit rather than debit. That way you don't have to give them your PIN number. Another good safety tip is to check your bank and credit card statements on a weekly basis. Good morning to you, Matt. And last report, Representative Steve Scalise remains in critical condition this morning. The hospital saying that he will likely have to undergo additional operations. We're also learning this morning a little bit more about that shot. That bullet went through his hip, fractured bones, injuring internal organs, and causing what they described as severe bleeding. He needed to receive additional units of blood transfusions. Now, President Donald Trump visited Scalise in the hospital last night. He tweeted out after that meeting that Scalise was in a pretty tough spot. Now, as for the exact motive in this case, it still remains somewhat unclear. Investigators are combing through the gunman's history on Facebook and online. He repeatedly posted anti-Trump rhetoric on the social messaging site. Now, I spoke with Louisiana lawmakers about the reaction to this shooting. At a time of partisan division, they pushed for unity.
It absolutely needs to be something that we learn from. Look, the bond that we share as Americans is much greater than the politics we may disagree with. And we have got to base everything upon that foundation of being Americans first.
We have to consider each other first as children of God, second as Americans, and work to both serve our country and to serve each other. We may disagree. We may have to agree to disagree, but that does not excuse violence.
Now, as I was talking to Senator Bill Cassidy, who you just heard there yesterday, he told me that it is key that lawmakers get back to work doing the people's business. Otherwise, he says, the gunman has won in this case. And another sign of that resiliency, as you mentioned at the top there, Matt, that game, that charity baseball game scheduled to still go on at Nationals Ballpark just across town a little later today. We'll have more on that coming up in the next half hour. For now, though, reporting in our nation's capital, I'm Kevin Frey, WAFB 9 News.
We are a little over 4 feet with the water level.
Byron Como is still struggling to make sense of it all. The floodwaters left a destructive path of the Magnolia Veterans Home, broken tiles, waterlogged walls, mold. Mattresses left sopping wet.
Our computers, Wi-Fi, everything is gone now.
Como, an Army veteran himself, along with his wife, have owned the center on Florida Boulevard for the last 15 years. Never once has it flooded. The facility serves as home to a small handful of veterans, all of them in need of constant and intensive care. Each suffers from bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or PTSD.
It's very, very hard for changes to happen to them. So when you have a change, they don't understand the change.
But last week, one of those changes came in the blink of an eye as the waters rose around them. Donald Crochet is one of the residents.
It was coming fast. I told Mr. Moore we'd have waited 20 more minutes, we wouldn't have better left.
Cleanup is now underway. It's a process that could take weeks or even months. But Como and his wife are determined to bring their soldiers back home.
It's a hurting situation. we can come back from this. I know we can.
In the meantime, the vets are staying here in North Baton Rouge, many counting the days until they can go home. But today, amid the despair, smiles. Members of a local VFW bringing donations to help these vets and their caretakers in their time of need.
My heart is just so full. I don't know what to say, but thank y'all so much. There is people that care. People do care, you know, and, you know, this is the evidence of what people do for you.
Kevin Frey, WAFB 9 News. Young or old, being pulled over by police while on the road can be a nerve-wracking experience. Just ask Senator Ryan Gaddy.
I put my hands at 9 and 3 o'clock. I had my paperwork ready. And, you know, here I am, a new state senator, and I had so much anxiety I was starting to sweat a little bit.
Now the Republican from Bossier City is pushing a bill aimed at easing the anxiety. His solution? Train new drivers on what to do when they are stopped by law enforcement on the side of the road. The bill makes those best practices part of driver's ed.
The officers have a plethora of training. How to stand, to turn on their camera, to do the different things at a traffic stop. What we found is that the other side of the coin did not have a lot of training.
The goal, he says, is to ensure safe, peaceful interactions between the officer and the driver. The same goes for a bill by Baton Rouge Democrat Edmund Jordan, changing how cops act during those traffic stops. When you get pulled over, you have to get out proof of insurance. Oftentimes that means reaching into your glove box. However, that sort of movement can make an otherwise normal interaction suddenly very tense.
The officer doesn't know if he's reaching for what he's asked for, if he's reaching for a weapon. His hands aren't able to be seen. The driver has some of those same apprehensions and fears.
Jordan's bill requires officers to search an electronic database to check if the driver has insurance, even before approaching the car. If the vehicle does not come up on that database, the officer can then ask to see the insurance card.
This, to me, really is just a public safety issue.
At the Capitol, Kevin Frey, WAFB 9 News. Hello again from Havana. The deals signed today are by no means official trade agreements. The embargo prevents that. But Louisiana leaders say they are a step in the right direction. Louisiana and Cuban leaders put pen to paper this morning, signing agreements affirming relations between the state and the island nation. Largely symbolic, the memorandums of understanding, as they're called, are designed to increase communication and allow for the sharing of ideas going forward.
We appreciate this visit as a positive sign of the will of many Americans to participate directly.
State leaders, including Commissioner of Agriculture Mike Strain, hope the deals will also give Louisiana a leg up if and when the embargo is lifted and trade with the island nation is expanded.
We are perfectly poised to be the predominant player in these markets.
Next year, Cuba is expected to import about $2 billion worth of agricultural products like rice and soybeans, items that are Louisiana's specialty.
In the United States, with American goods, within 5 years, if we can normalize trade relationships, we could have $1 billion of that. We fully expect Louisiana to have a lion's share of that.
Even with the embargo in place, Louisiana has been allowed limited trade with Cuba for items deemed necessary for humanitarian reasons. But that trade has waned in recent years as Cuba's economy struggled, cutting back on their ability to pay. Looking around Havana, it's hard to miss the extreme poverty, in some cases just a block from major tourist hubs like this park. Strain says because of all this, the embargo should be lifted sooner rather than later.
We have to renormalize these negotiations so that we can trade just like with any other country.
But any chance of that could still be a long way off. Coming up tomorrow, the Louisiana group on the ground here in Havana will be visiting a port that is currently being expanded in order to entice more trade to the island. We'll have updates for you along the way. For now, though, reporting in Havana for the Raycom News Network, I'm Kevin Frey. Over the years, Aubrey Edwards has grown used to carrying his grandson, but never like this.
When they told me the water was too deep to come, I got a pretty high truck. I said, I'm going to give it a try.
His daughter and grandson trapped. Water flooding the first floor of their apartment. He drove through the flooded streets, carting them both to safety.
Being a parent, your job is never over, you know, and I'm just glad to be there for them.
This is a scene that has played out across the Hammond area today, starting early this morning when sheriff boats helped rescue more than 300 stranded residents across the parish.
Were you able to save some of your stuff?
No, just got some dry clothes. Just got some dry clothes. And we got our lives, so thank God for that.
We know our stuff can be replaced, but we can't, so we're just happy to get out of there.
Across town on West David Drive, Good Samaritans helping others escape the rising tide.
It's bad.
With his truck and boat, Lawrence Wesby and his team rescued more than 15 people.
Well, this is my cousin here. He's a little friend, and him and the family got stranded, so I went and got my boat. We're going to get them out of here.
Neighbors helping neighbors as they wait for the water to finally subside. And again, that number has now inched up to 500 people that had to be rescued in Tangipahoa Parish throughout the course of the day. A few reminders tonight. There is a curfew in place from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. as emergency crews continue to work, so you're asked to stay off the road, stay home. Another thing, if you're living along the Tangipahoa River, it is still on the rise, expected to crest tomorrow at 10 a.m. So if you were in a place that was impacted by Hurricane Isaac, please do evacuate is what the parish president is saying now. It's expected to be just as bad or even worse this time around. Overnight, detectives were on the scene of another deadly shooting in Baton Rouge. This is what it looked like last night around 10 o'clock on Laurel Street near North 26th Street. That's where Baton Rouge police say 21-year-old Anthony Campbell was found dead from apparent gunshot wounds. Detectives have not said what led up to the deadly scene or whether they have any suspects in mind. If you know anything that may be able to help those investigators, call Crime Stoppers at 344-STOP. Developing news now, the Iberville Parish Sheriff's Office is investigating after the body of a young woman was found in Whiskey Bay. Sheriff Brett Stassi says a fisherman discovered the body earlier today under I-10 between mile marker 130 and 131. They are treating it as a homicide. The woman is described as white, likely between age 25 and 35. An autopsy is scheduled for Monday. A key source of money for Louisiana's coastal restoration efforts may be at risk, and now some coastal activists are sounding the alarm. John Snell has our story. A 9 News update now on the controversy surrounding Baton Rouge's now former second-in-command, Chief Administrative Officer Troy Bell, resigned his post yesterday after less than a week on the job. Bell is accused of lying on his resume about a master's degree in public administration. Today, 9 News spoke to Mayor Sharon Westenbroom, who appointed him to the post after a months-long search. Here's what she told us.